Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Comic Tropes After Dark channel. My name is Chris, and I am the host tonight for the weekly Spinner Rack, where we are going to talk about the latest comic books that came out and the latest comic book news, which is pretty wild. If there's time, I've got some drawing tools so that I can just sort of draw and chat with the live stream. It's going to be a great show. I'll tell you that right now. It's so weird. Now that I've got this intro and then I see it cut to me on screen, I feel like I need to do something bigger for an intro or something. It feels like when I'm scrolling through shorts and cosplayers go like, huh? Oh. Do a little dance. So tell you what, before I get into show business and update you on where I'm at, let me give some shout outs to all the folks who are here early. GT Key Comic always in early. Sherb early. Hello to, Christopher DeRose, the Comic Tropes After Dark Place. I'm so glad that I've been able to introduce people to Garth Marenghi's Dark Place through this show. Older show, but it's hilarious. 6 episodes, Yeah, woohoo! I'm very excited for the show tonight. Thank you. Yes. Hello, Ian. You are a little early. Aloha. Hello, all. Hello, or konbanwa. I can't tell what time it is there. That intro, yeah, well, it gives me a moment to sort of just level set instead of just going live. It really honestly helps me. So this is great. Thank you so much, folks. Lovely to see names both new and old. I'm now Christopher Tropes, the sequel. I'll take it. Let's see. The host with the most. I'm the host with the most, baby. There's my terrible, never before done Beetlejuice impression. Hello. This is a lot. Hello, Mexico City. Very cool. Actually, I've got a friend who is planning to move to a town just outside of Mexico City by the end of this year. So maybe I'll get to visit Mexico City. I would really like to do that, actually. I've been to Mexico, but just over the border, basically. I want to say Tijuana or something. Yeah, Tijuana. And that was honestly a long time ago. It sounds like Dom Toretto having a bad day. When have we ever seen Dominic Toretto have a good day? The only good days he has are winning a race after his life was on the line, or getting to have some potato salad with a bunch of idiots after a super criminal tried to blow them up. He gets half of a good day. Alberta, Canada. No, I'd love to go. I'd love Queens. I've got a good buddy in Queens. Yeah, I know. And there's a lot. I forget the name of the town. And my friend that I'm talking about is Comic Drake, by the way. So tell you what, let me use that as a segue. I want to show something. I met up with Comic Drake this just a couple days ago. Oops, that's not the view I wanted to pull up. There it is. So here is what we did. We did a sort of signing and fan meetup up in Linwood, just north of Seattle, at a store called Phantom Comics that was kind enough to host us. This is the three of us that were there pretending to be bored, and there's a massive crowd just off the screen, but this is something Drake does. So there's me on the right, Drake in the middle, and on the left, much bigger channel than both of ours, honestly. Panda Red, Jay. So there was that, and then this just gives you a little of an idea of what we got to do. So it was really, really nice, honestly. Drake and I, looked at a manga comic store and got some food beforehand. Then we went here, met up with Jay, and we were scheduled to do this signing from 7 to 8, which is normally when Phantom Zone closes. We went from 7 to 9:30, and then we were there was only a few people left to say hello to, and we said, look, why don't you close the store? You've been nice, and we'll just host the rest outside. So my thanks to all the people that showed up. I was able to sell some comics, which was great, meet some viewers, meet somebody that was actually one of my patrons. So I really appreciate that support. it was really nice getting to hang out with both Jay and Drake. They were really lovely, and the people at the store I want to say thanks to. So we had a really great night this week, and I just wanted to shout that out. Very, very fun. Took a long time. The next day, I felt it because I'm older than both of them. You could probably add them both together, and no, that would pass my age, but still. Let me add another document here, though, and we'll get into the news. We'll get into the news of the week because it was a crazy one. Is this? I like that, where I'm just a little bigger over here. You guys can see all this, yes? All right. Yeah, well, obviously he's huge on TikTok, but he is getting into doing more long-form analysis on YouTube. So, yeah, it's crazy what kind of a comic book YouTuber scene there is here in the Pacific Northwest. Like, I see Dave, who's in the chat, or at least he was. I see Dave pretty regularly. I know Dave pretty well. I talk a lot to Bronze Age Nerd and Big B McFly, the comic book guy, who do a weekly show at 8 o'clock on Mondays. And but there's other guys that I know here, like Comic Tom and some newer channels. Here, Spirit is. That's enough for me, Dave. Dave and I will get coffee regularly on Comic Book Day whenever we can. Yeah, there's a lot of comic creators. I would say a little bit more heavily just south of me, like in the Portland area. There are some in Washington, but there's a lot in Oregon. There's a lot. Hey, that's great to hear, Joe. That's really awesome. I'm jealous. And by the way, so you see this little thumbnail that I've created this week. We've got two companies here battling over the remains of Diamond Comics, and I've actually done a well, admittedly shitty job cut and paste the characters from Robot Jox, because Jim Mafood, myself, and Daniel Warren Johnson recently recorded an episode about the movie Robot Jox, which is a gigantic mech fighting movie, and that'll be coming out on this channel within the week. So yeah, that I just used Robot Jox to sort of like visually show these companies all in battle. But I think that you guys will really like that episode when we get it out. I think the three of us had different points of view and different things to say. I'm really excited to share it with you. Anyway, a lot of preamble. Let's, you want to see Robot Jox? It is free on Pluto TV if you can get that app. Yep, Trash Movie Bonanza with D-dubs. So I think you guys will like that. Correct, yeah. Well, wait a minute. Not the same director, the same writer. The guy, Stuart Gordon directed and co-wrote Robot Jox, and he was one of the writers on Reanimator. But I believe, and I could be wrong, I'm going purely off memory. I thought that Reanimator was directed by Brian Usna. Am I wrong about that? I kind of forget, to be honest. But anyway, Robot Jox is low budget, but I would argue very entertaining. So moving on, Diamond Distribution. I've been talking about it so much, I'm like sort of burned out, except things keep changing, and that does keep it a little interesting. Reanimator is Stuart. Nice to have you here, Jim. Awesome. Usna did the sequels. That would be it. That would be it. And Usna was a producer. Thanks, everybody. I was sort of going off of my memories, but let me talk about Diamond, because folks, things got wild this week. To be clear, last week we learned that the top bidder for almost all of Diamond Distribution's assets, except for Diamond UK, they didn't want Diamond UK. The top bidder was Alliance Entertainment. Okay, and they specialize in distributing music, vinyl specifically, as well as like collectibles and stuff. They're related, collectible stuff. EJ, I can promise you it's better than Atlantic Rim. I can promise you that. It's worth watching. But wait for our episode, and that'll give you some insight. So, and it's always lovely to have you here, buddy. So yeah, Alliance Entertainment, they bid over 72 million for Diamond's assets. And then the next step was, okay, they were the top bidder. Now it goes to bankruptcy court for approval. The debtor has to, come up with paperwork that everyone agrees to, and a judge has to sign off to sort of end. It's a legal status, bankruptcy, Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It's a legal status. Okay, so there was a backup bidder. There always is, just in case things fall apart for various reasons. Okay, the next best bidder is still in contention to get a company in bankruptcy. I mean, if it was big enough, I assume that they can even have a third backup. But anyway, the backup bidder was actually unique. It was two companies that were somehow allowed to operate as one bidding unit. Like one of them only wanted some of the assets, so they weren't going to basically win. The other wanted just some of the assets, so they weren't going to win the overall auction. But together, they were able to do this. And their bid was for $69 million and change. So a difference of $3 million less. $3 million, honestly pretty close, but still less, okay? The two companies that I'm talking about are Universal, which is a comic book distributor. They're a Canadian comic book distributor. Here and there, they've tried to get into the American market. I think that they'd love to have both Diamond and Diamond UK. That would be a huge step up for them. And then the second company that was bidding with them was Ad Populum. And they own a bunch of toy companies like WizKids, most famously NECA, N-E-C-A. You guys probably know about NECA toys. So they would want Diamond's, what is it called? Diamond Select Toy Group. Here we go. Diamonds are not forever. Sean Connery, just briefly woke up and he was like, "Good one there, West Coast Davengers." And then he passed away again. He was able to revive because briefly his body was on African soil. And if you watch League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, if his corpse is on African soil, he comes back to life. Or maybe that was a fictional character. Who knows? All right. Moving on. Let me explain some more. With these two companies, the deal was that Universal was going to pay $49.6 million for the Alliance games and Diamond UK. Ad Populum would pay $19.4 million for the rest, which included Diamond Select Toys. Okay? Just sort of breaking some of that up. But one is a toy company, one is a comic book company. Now it gets tricky. There's a group called the Debtor, which represents Diamond in court, okay? They rejected Alliance's winning bid and wanted to go with the Universal Ad Populum bid, the second best bid. And so now Alliance is suing Diamond, saying, no, we're the winning bid. You don't get to say you want to go with the second. There's no reason to. So that court hearing was held today, and we don't know the answer yet. But that hearing as to who gets the Diamond assets happens today. At least it was started today. I assume it's a one-day court proceeding to decide who has the legal rights to buy the damn company. I don't know. That's the hard fact. I'm going to speculate wildly here. After Alliance won the auction, their president, Bruce, I want to say Ogilvy or something close to that, went on a comic book show, and he explained why they were interested in diversifying their portfolio by adding comics to the equation, and he explained the technology and distribution hubs that they have that should enable them to do it in a very good manner. But he also expressed, a complete lack of knowledge on comics. And I wonder if that meant that the folks at Diamond were like, we want it to go to a comic book related company. But I don't know if they legally can decide that at this point. I really don't know. I just don't know. What it means effectively is this, though. Diamond is likely to continue to exist as a comic book distributor. However, this also means that things are getting delayed. And that means that comic book companies and merchandise companies that are still using Diamond are probably not getting paid in full, maybe not at all. There's a lot of money just like in holding right now. And you gotta figure that that's really screwing over some companies. I just don't know. I don't have access to all those details, but there's just no way everybody's getting paid properly. You don't trust the clowns running Nika. I don't know too much about them as a business. I know their sculpts are nice. I don't know much else. What if the real winning bidder is Mark Jeweler? It would be interesting to see them come back. Yeah, they've been gone a long time now. It is. Yeah, not getting paid is the worst part. Was there anything else I had on that? Yeah, oh, just this that I already said. The case is being heard by a judge in Maryland today. So next week, it's likely we'll know who owns Diamond and who's going to run things. Product is still getting shipped through them. Product is still getting shipped. Now, I'm sure that there's some companies that aren't using them, but I think that the ones that are probably not really getting paid in full right now. So it's buyer beware. Look at all these folks shouting out. I'll just say something real quick. This is just for me. Like, I love this show. This is what excites me about comics, is getting to talk to folks like you about it. And the fact that there are often other comic book YouTubers and comic book pros in the audience is incredibly flattering. I can't call it out each and every time going like, folks, look at that name. But it's very exciting for me, and I hope it's exciting for you to see guys like, EJ Sue and Jim Mafood and West Coast Avengers in here regularly. We've had like Stepan Sajic and Mark Spears recently, and it's really, really flattering that some of them are here when it's live. Everybody here has a point of view. It's lovely to have readers' point of view. It's also very valuable to have, experts in the field. And, someday maybe there'll be like some comic book store owners that get in the mix, and we'd have like some real opinions on distribution. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, you don't have to be on screen. That does sound nice. But anyway, the jokes are incredible here that we get. Like, I want to be the funny one, but a lot of times it's you guys. Anyway, I'll go back to the news. Just wanted to shout that out briefly, that like I love the crowd and the vibe that we have here. I almost forgot. This was like sort of a last minute addition to this news. Udon Entertainment actually announced just like either yesterday or the day before that it signed a deal with Simon & Schuster to distribute their comics. Not exclusively. So they do still distribute through Diamond, Alliance, and Lunar. But Udon Entertainment makes Mega Man and Street Fighter books. Those are probably their most recognized books, like American manga stuff. I just thought that was interesting seeing, I haven't seen Simon & Schuster get too into the comic book distribution game. That's interesting seeing yet another player. That's so nice. You've got your coffee. I've got my due. Infamous Mike Manhattan. I do have some news there in a little bit. You're all my family. Oh my God, that hurts every time I do it. All right. The tariffs, or the coming tariffs, technically, because they still have been delayed in some places, but the tariffs seem to have affected Spawn. Let me go over this. Todd McFarlane has actually kept his Spawn books priced at $2.99 since May of 2010. And I should add this. I think for 5 years before that, it was at $2.95. So essentially the same price. At some point they were going to have to raise because he has done everything he can to keep that price at like basically the lowest in the industry for like a mainstream colored superhero comic on that kind of paper. And he was able to do it because, Spawn has a very healthy print run, at least the main title. But they did announce this week that they've got to raise the price. There are actually 6 Spawn books right now. There's 2 miniseries, and then there's Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn, King Spawn, and Spawn Rat City. I believe the other 2 are, let's see, there's Scorched and one about like a witch. I forget. But anyway, they're all going to increase, okay? They're all going up to $3.99, which, to be fair, right now, that's still pretty damn good, right? I think we can all agree that right now, $3.99 for a book is a fair price, at least compared to everything else. So, yeah, like lots of people talking about how great the quality is. I think that Todd generally looks to take care of his fans, and it says things like, look, my fans take care of me. I try to take care of them. I respect that a lot. I respect him as a businessman quite a bit. So the first issue to reflect the new $3.99 price point is going to be July's Spawn number 366. Seen here, it's a little fuzzy, but that's $3.99 it's now showing. So what's going to happen if you don't really know the behind the scenes? I'm just going to give you the super condensed version, is that the U.S. is expected to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods starting April 6th. It's been delayed twice, but it is expected. And July, they have to issue the solicitations with the price point and everything months in advance because comic book stores need to know what to order. So these are decisions that have to take place in advance. Todd McFarlane Productions are assuming, of course, that these announced tariffs are going to go into effect. And 25%, that's a big jump. You can't eat that much when you're already trying to sell it at the lowest price point in the industry. You have to raise it $1. I would say that of course this book had to be the first to do it because they were priced the lowest and they were probably making the smallest margin per comic out of like mainstream superhero stuff. But I would expect other comics to go up about $1. That's a good question, and of course nobody knows, but there are a hell of a lot of cars produced in Canada and Mexico for the U.S. market. There are a good amount made here. However, parts are still often imported from other countries as well. So tariffs are going to increase the price of cars, and then it'll probably be like a month or 2 delay, but like the increased demand will push that onto the used car market. So he's asking because that's the business I work in. The prices I expect to go up. I expect it to go up. Yeah, I do expect comics to sell a little bit less. I think that there will still be, a good group of books that sell very well. I think that but we may actually see one thing that could be a little good out of this is if it affects comics and like people are buying less issues, that may mean that like Marvel and DC won't make like 6 to 10 copies of Batman titles or Spider-Man titles every month. And that might up the overall quality because they're not like diluting the brand. But that's wild speculation as well. I just don't know. Yeah, it's going to hit indie comics the hardest because you get discounts the more you get volume discounts the more you produce, and indie comics work on a smaller margin. So that's what's going to hurt. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Every car is going to have at least some foreign parts, so that it all filters down. I would expect it to happen. Just being realistic. And I think I think that we will see some changes come from there. I don't know what those would be, but maybe there are discounts to be found somewhere along the line if you order a certain number of copies. Maybe there are discounts to be found in shipping somehow. I don't know. There may be room for pricing digitally different than print, which not everybody likes. Or we may see bigger comics come out less frequently. The monthly may not be the dominant form. It may be like standard for, as I said before, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. They can probably take that, and maybe they'll only have to go up, for all we know, 50 cents, not $1. I don't know, okay? But it may mean that like the graphic novel format or 48-page issues or something could become more cost effective to print if you have to deal with these prices. Yeah, Taiwan got hit so hard. If you guys follow the stock market at all, it's plummeting worldwide, okay, for several days. Weekend, it's closed. Monday morning, stock markets crashed. It crashed so bad in poor Taiwan, it hit what's called the circuit breaker. And that's where something like, it can either be manic spending or panic selling. In this case, it was panic selling. So much was being sold so fast. The circuit breaker hit and the markets closed. So that, like, because it was just too crazy. Sorry, I got a super chat. Let's Sigma Comics will keep our $2.99 price. We put our customers in mission fighting animal cruelty before profit. Keep supporting indie comics. Very admirable. Very admirable. That not everybody will be able to do the same thing at the same time. That's so impressive. Yeah, lower quality paper is an idea. However, the reason comics print on the glossy paper is because that's actually kind of the industry standard right now for what gets produced the most. So there are economies of scale to be found with this higher quality paper. If you were to produce a book in newsprint, it actually costs about the same because while the paper should be less, a lot less of it is made. So, yeah, there's some wild things happening. But I'm not here to like lecture everybody about markets and everything. I'm just talking about what's going to happen and what has happened. Let's see. What is a realistic price point? It's really hard to say. It's elastic to a degree. We don't know yet what it will support. Right now, it supports $4.99 a month. It does. Would it do better at less? I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't matter. I don't know. Can it support a higher cost? That's sort of how you test things and then figure out what to do. All right. There's more stuff to talk about with the same sort of topic. The tariffs have also led to canceled indie comics figures. Just last week, I mentioned this Kickstarter because I thought it would be cool to get some action figures of like Grendel and Savage Dragon, Rocketeer, Tick. These are characters I sincerely like. I like the idea, and I've seen Wave 1. Wave 1 was cool. Longbox Heroes was going to have Wave 2. They've canceled their Kickstarter, and they explained it. These are just parts of their quotes. You can go to the Kickstarter if you want to see more details. But they say, as many of you may be aware, recent policy changes have significantly increased tariffs on goods imported from China. These new policies impose an additional 35% tariff on top of the existing 20%, meaning we now face over 50% in tariffs on our manufacturing costs. Unfortunately, this cost is not absorbed by China. It directly impacts us it directly impacts us as manufacturers and ultimately you as backers. With our original pricing model, a figure was $25. But with this new increase, we would need to add an additional $5 per figure plus shipping and handling. This means a single figure would now cost roughly $40 for backers once all tariffs and shipping and handling fees are factored in. And they go on to say, look, we think we make a good product. We don't think that that's the right value. So we're going to cancel this until we can find out a different way to make it. I would expect all toys, things like, G.I. Joe Classified and stuff, to go up. Here's where it gets really scary. I've seen people say, like, we'll just manufacture it here in America and stuff. Unfortunately, first, we don't have the scale. Second, we pay our labor a lot more. So it doesn't quite, and here's the really scary thing. The price of oil is also dropping because people are getting sensitive about how they spend money. Oil is what's used to make plastic. But when oil drops in price to a certain level, they actually stop manufacturing as much to increase the demand and to not waste it, because oil goes bad, basically. Right now, demand for it is going down. And what it realistically means is that, statues and figures and things like that, the prices on those are also going to go way up. Possibly like getting hit twice, once by tariffs, second by oil prices. So it's bad. It's bad. Oh yeah, McFarlane stuff, unfortunately. Sorry to focus on some negative stuff. I have some really fun, positive stuff. This is real stuff that we have to talk about if we're going to talk about comic book news. Okay? Moving on. Spider-Man 4 got a title and a release date. This is at least fun to talk about. So Sony announced the title for the fourth Spider-Man film that stars Tom Holland and Sadie Sink. Those are the only confirmed actors we know so far. It's ditching that whole home theme that they had going, Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home. The new one is going to be called Spider-Man Brand New Day. I just heard everybody like clench. They heard Brand New Day, and like I heard hundreds of sphincters worldwide. But to be clear, it's super unlikely that they would ever adapt the infamous comics that had that title. That was the storyline where Spider-Man basically wished away his marriage with Mephisto the Devil. You never know. But I really think that they're just taking a recognizable title, very similar to, if you're watching Daredevil, no spoilers, but they call it Born Again. It is not an adaptation of the Born Again story, but thematically it still makes sense. There are characters in it, multiple, that are born again. So they're just using a well-recognized title. It would be like making a brand new X-Men called Days of Future Past, but it wasn't, for some reason, adapting the original time travel story. Who knows? Or God Loves, Man Kills, but they didn't deal with like Reverend William Stryker. They just dealt with like humanity being mad at mutants. So that's my opinion. Meanwhile, related note, Hollywood insider Daniel RPK says that Sony is looking to cast an Asian man between 30 to 50 for the movie. I don't know necessarily who else that would be on like a big level other than Mr. Negative, who's a great villain that we haven't seen in live action before. I think that would be cool. Is it the most polarizing event? That's an interesting question from Dave. Is One More Day, Brand New Day the most polarizing Spider-Man story ever? I would say no, not the most polarizing. The most polarizing, I'd still say, is the Clone War, because plenty of people still enjoy it. I would say Brand New Day, way more people dislike it than like it. Way more people dislike it than like it. I think Mr. Negative would be an awesome villain. That's a good point. It was... Jamilin has a great argument here. I did just call Brand New Day the Mephisto storyline. Technically, it's what happens right after. It's starting fresh. And in a way, it makes a little bit of sense, because if they honor what happened in the last Spider-Man movie, everybody has forgotten his secret identity stuff. So that makes a little bit of sense. I can understand wanting to see classic villains, but who's left that would be awesome as a classic villain that we haven't seen ever? I would say that, I mean, they got all of the Sinister Six on screen, right? Like, yeah, we didn't get a Kraven as a villain in a Spidey movie, and that would be dope. But I think it's going to be a couple of years until we see Kraven show up again. Mr. Negative is a really good villain. Scorpion, that's fair. Scorpion's pretty good. Scorpion could be good. See, Hydro Man, Shocker, like, I don't think of those as great villains. Again, Chameleon was used in Kraven, so I feel like, yeah. Hobgoblin could be good. Hobgoblin could legit be good. But you kind of need to have, in my opinion, Green Goblin first. And they haven't used like a new version of Green Goblin in the MCU. You guys are all now just like intentionally just the swarm. How about Swiss Miss from the Spider-Man musical? She's like a metal lady with knives for hands. Pepsi Man, the Wall from the Spidey Super Stories. The Sony movies will be ignored, but you've got to consider that there's a lot of mainstream public that does not always understand the difference between the Sony movies and the MCU. They don't always understand that. They might just go like, Kraven, wasn't that a shitty movie? I don't want to see him. You have to wait a little while. Yeah, Swiss Miss, and they had another original. They had the Swarm in the musical. I saw it, and I'm trying to remember who else they had. I don't know. Yeah, the hostess ads. Professor Monster. EJ pulling up the Japanese Spider-Man. Professor Monster was the main villain in the live-action Japanese Spider-Man show. I think Boomerang could be an interesting sort of like henchman or secondary threat. I don't know if he's got the personality to base a whole movie around. Director Destin Daniel Cretton was at CinemaCon this past weekend. That's why, if you didn't realize, there were a ton of new trailers that came out in the last couple of days. It's because there's an event called CinemaCon where movie theaters get sort of shown the latest stuff by movie studios, stuff that's coming out soon. And some of that gets shared to us, and some of it is like there was a Fantastic Four trailer, I think, but we didn't get that. It was just for movie theater owners. Anyway, the director said, we're all just daily nerding out over the suit, how to swing, how to create an event, an emotional story, and a ride that we haven't really seen before. Fingers crossed it's good. The Jackal is overall a pretty good villain because of his mad scientist nature. But I don't really want to see the Clone Saga represented on film. So how he would be used would be very important. I'm going to just adjust this a little. Yeah. Morlun? In a way, Morlun could work if you wanted to go full Spider-Verse. But we're getting so much Spider-Verse stuff with those excellent animated films. I don't know if it would make sense. I would not be against a crime story, but here's the thing. If you did a crime story, yeah, you've got the Rose, Crime Master, Hammerhead, Tombstone, all sorts of great, villains, but I'd want Kingpin to be in there. I'd want Kingpin. And there are rumors that Kingpin is attached to the Daredevil rights, not the Spider-Man rights, and that one thing is, but that there's a wrinkle there where they're not allowed to use him on film. That's a rumor, but who knows? Madam Web, Brand New Day. You're just here to torture me. Not necessarily. I want to see Kingpin like up against Spidey. He's a Spidey villain. Is this the new Doctor Doom look? You guys see that? That is a weird. This is like a guy in a boiler suit with a purple cape and like sort of like fur that a pimp would wear, a thin little Madame Mask like faceplate, and a bunch of goofy hair. Well, one of Robert Downey Jr.'s friends shared this birthday card invite this year, and that is a very different look for Doctor Doom. But that was on Robert Downey Jr.'s birthday card this year. He invited friends, and that was the art that they used. And if you look at Robert Downey Jr. right now, he has changed his hairstyle to be this. So that like definitely worried me. However, I also saw this. The Russo brothers, who are directing Avengers Doomsday, posted this art by Boss Logic, and that's a much more traditional Doctor Doom look. So hopefully this is nothing. This is just created for a birthday card and they're just being weirdos. I don't know. It's totally a wait and see. I'm not trying to panic. Yeah, I wouldn't think either of them necessarily could be counted on to be the design. It's just, I'll be honest, like that does not look like a guy who can take on all of the Avengers. It looks like a guy who took like 3 pieces of a costume at what's that Halloween store every year that always closes down? It looks like they grabbed like a pimp cloak, a Michael Myers boiler suit, and just a generic like plastic flimsy faceplate to put on. And they were like, yeah, this is a costume. Doctor Doom needs to be like the best. Spirit Halloween. Thank you. I couldn't think of it. That damn Vin Diesel voice is killing me. That is true. Robert Downey Jr. has actually always been one of the best at not leaking anything. So he turned 60. That said, I don't think he looks anything close to 60. I really don't. Like, does he look older because we've seen him like very prominently in movies for over 10 years? Yeah, he looks older, but I don't look at that guy and go like, ooh, an old 60-year-old man. He looks good. Hey, cat. This is fun. John Bernthal is getting very involved in The Punisher. He really, I think, respects this character. So back at the end of February, the Marvel television head, Brad Winderbaum, was talking to comicbook.com. He was promoting Daredevil. And he let them know that there's going to be a Punisher special, kind of like we got, what did we get? We got Werewolf by Night and the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. Those were like, like one-off specials. They're going to do one of those for Punisher. Almost like a TV movie. This week, Winderbaum told Entertainment Weekly that Bernthal is actually writing. I gotta have something to drink. My throat is super dry. Hi, cat. Jack, please get down. My cat is going crazy. I'm going to ask my wife if she would mind feeding them. Give me 2 seconds because they're going to be howling. They think that I'm going to jump to feed them. Okay, let's see. So where did I leave off? Yeah, so he's going to co-write the Punisher special with Ronaldo Marcus Green, and that's actually a guy who directed John Bernthal in a 2022 miniseries called We Own This City. So these guys work well together, and yeah. That's funny. There was a long period of time where people would say that I looked like Kiefer Sutherland. I don't think I do anymore, but like when I was younger, I actually got that a lot. That's so funny. Oh, thank you, Chrissy. Thank you. Yeah, the cat's acting like he hasn't eaten in forever. He's destroying a Lego set that I've got up there. I've broken down like every Lego set I had, and I thought that my Mandalorian set here was safe, but now Jack is destroying it. Jack, please stop. Isn't this exciting, just hearing me describe something that's happening off screen for you? I will say that joke was never executed better than in Wet Hot American Summer. Joe Latrulio goes to get who's the other guy? The Ken Marino, to rescue some camp kids that are about to go over a waterfall. And he gets Ken Marino there, and then all you see is Joe Latrulio going, "Oh my God, are you gonna? Oh, he's doing it! Oh my God, he's saving them! Oh, I can't believe it! It's happening! He's saving those kids! That's so dramatic!" It was a great joke. You didn't see anything; you just hear him describe all this exciting stuff. Yeah, the Razor Crest is getting trashed right now. Oh man, Barracuda is a great idea for the special. He's a good villain. Anyway, Bernthal said this to Collider this week. Frank is in my bones, is in my heart. I care about him. In discussing what this thing could be, and this sort of version of Frank that I really felt that the audience was hungry for, that the military community was hungry for, the first responder community, the comic book fans, they were really hungry for it. Sounds good. Sounds good. I would love to see a hardcore take on Punisher. I think Punisher has been used very well in Daredevil. Well cast, good look. I wasn't a huge fan of season 1 and 2 of Punisher. I didn't like their take on Jigsaw. Season 2 was okay in parts, but like not a very interesting villain. So I don't think we'll get to the point where we get Frank and Castle in the MCU, but that is a great run. Yeah, pull from Ennis, and I say like Barracuda is a great idea. Yeah, there's a lot of cops as well as like firefighters and EMTs that are pretty big fans of Punisher. And yeah. There they go. Imperial is actually going to return to Planet Hulk. I think that's an interesting idea. So Marvel this week released some preview art by both Federico Vincentini and Iban Coelho for the upcoming 4-issue cosmic miniseries Imperial. It's written by Jonathan Hickman, and I guess it's going to sort of like have at least 2 sort of concurrent stories that eventually converge. But Vincentini said, when creating the costumes, and he does like stuff with a bunch of like the Guardians characters, I wanted to go back a bit to the past, such as bringing back Star-Lord's helmet, giving Nova an aviator-style jacket, and taking inspiration from classic heroes like Flash Gordon. I think that's a strong idea. Flash Gordon, I mean, that is absolutely where the cosmic stuff all comes from. All of it. And then Coelho's pages, interestingly, showed Hulk, Amadeus Cho, who's these days called Brawn, and She-Hulk returning to Sakaar, which was from the classic and fantastic Planet Hulk run. Hulk back in his armor and everything, his gladiator armor. So I'm actually curious about that part of it. That's cool. I think that's definitely the goal, Owen, is that Hickman's trying to come up with like a new paradigm that the cosmic books could use. I think he sort of tried that with Gods, but I don't think that really took. We'll see. Sakaar was definitely like, kind of a wasteland, but it wasn't like, I don't think that the planet itself was physically destroyed. There were still people on it. That was a long time ago now that I think of it, Planet Hulk. Was that like 10 years or something? I don't know. Maybe there's a new Sakaar for all I know, I hope he doesn't overcomplicate it. I will say that I'm taking it with a grain of salt as to how excited I'm going to get after Gods, But I do like a lot of stuff that Hickman does. So no, she wasn't. Neither was Amadeus Cho. So that's new, them going back there. Back in 2006. Wow. That's almost 20 years ago that it started. That is wild to think about. As you get older, you lose some perspective of how long ago some things were. They're like, oh, it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, 20 years almost, 19 years. That's amazing. It's a great story. It's really good. If you're looking for a good run on Hulk, it's a good run. DC is doing something for retailers. They've got these new sort of stands and books at discount. So they're offering a 10% discount on certain titles to help comic shops promote them. Comic stores that buy 20 or more books from DC's Young Reader backlist, so not new books, these are all just things that they've already made for young readers or middle grade readers. They qualify for the top here, a standee that can like flip around. It either shows the Teen Titans stuff that Cami Garcia drew or Teen Titans Go stuff based on that cartoon. Yeah, exactly. Young adult is a huge market, so this is a good idea. Let's see. So books available for the discount include the Teen Titans graphic novels by Cami Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo, as well as multiple Teen Titans Go books, Primer, that was more of a middle school thing, all of the DC like webtoons books, Nothing But Nightwing, their manga type titles. They've got like 97 young adult books that stores can choose from, and they just need to be ordered by April 11th. So 10% discount on them. If you order 20 copies, you get the free standee, which I do see that stuff catch people's eyes when they come into comic book stores. Yeah, who knows? I mean, DC's been putting a bunch of their issue number ones in Dollar Trees and some local grocery stores, so maybe they would do something like that. It's a smart idea, especially right now. Yeah, it is fun. It's their best logo, definitely. Batman actor passed. I'm sure you all heard about this. I mean, this is pretty big news. But yeah, Val Kilmer. He was only 65. Not much older, obviously, than Robert Downey Jr. Fifth actor to play Batman in live action. There was like somebody with the last name Lewis. I forget the second live action Batman. Those were both like black and white serials. And then, of course, there was Adam West and Michael Keaton. And then Val Kilmer was Batman in Batman Forever. He had the look. He's a good actor. He had actually put his throat cancer into remission. He had basically beaten throat cancer. But his daughter says that he got pneumonia. And that's what took him out, unfortunately. And I have to imagine that after your body has fought off cancer there, that it just can't be as easy to breathe. If you don't know Val Kilmer, because there's plenty of younger people here or something, some movies I'd point you to that he was great in. Tombstone, he's incredible in that movie. Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, actually. I'd argue both of those really good movies and really good Val Kilmer movies. The Doors, True Romance, really underrated Val Kilmer performance. Really great movie. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Robert Downey Jr. Now that I think of it, great crime movie by Shane Black. Really good movies. The Top Secret and Real Genius, definitely really funny. The Saint, not really a fan of it, but whatever. I like Willow. I think Willow hits for some, doesn't for other, but yeah, lots of great movies. Heat. How did I forget to mention Heat? Heat was a fantastic, fantastic one. Although that movie, I guess it was because it was mostly focusing on De Niro and Pacino acting together, but he was really good in it. Thunderheart, that's a fair call, yeah. But Ghost in the Darkness, that was with Michael Douglas, yeah. MacGruber is one of my favorites. Plenty of people don't like MacGruber. I find MacGruber absolutely hilarious. Val Kilmer was the villain in the MacGruber movie. I think it was so good. Wow. I'll watch that. Thanks. Yeah, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is totally a hidden gem. Island of Dr. Moreau is definitely potential fodder for trash movie bonanza. That was a troubled production. I'll say that, like, when Batman Forever came out, I was younger. I enjoyed it at the time. And then I didn't really like it too much. Now I'm just sort of like, it's okay. There's parts of it I like. I think Val Kilmer is pretty good as Bruce Wayne and Batman in it. I think Jim Carrey is pretty good as Riddler. I think Tommy Lee Jones is outright bad as Two-Face. Like, just didn't get the character. He's a good actor, just did not get the character at all. And I don't think that Dr. Chase Meridian was an especially interesting love interest or anything. Chris O'Donnell was, like, in my opinion, kind of old for Robin. It was, so there's stuff I like and stuff I don't like. I think you're right. I think Kiss Kiss Bang Bang did a lot for Robert Downey Jr. It's a really good movie. Glad to see so many people do know about it. So, I'm just saying that, hey, he was Batman, though. If you want to see a funny riff on Batman, there's a show that Warwick Davis had a sitcom that Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant did. I forget exactly what it was called. Like, might have been something like a pun, like Life's Short. It's about Warwick Davis just trying to get, like, work, and Ricky and Stephen Merchant, like, just sort of, like, sometimes help him. Anyway, they're having a dinner, and Val Kilmer comes up in, like, a Batman mask, and he's like, "Guess who I am?" And they're all, like, guessing, like, everyone but him. They're like, "I don't know, Christian Bale, like Michael Keaton." And he's like, "No, it's me." And they're like, "Oh yeah, okay." Oh, Life's Too Short. Right. Life's Too Short. But Life's Too Short was sort of hit and miss, but the Val Kilmer scene was pretty damn funny. Moving on. Tom King and Elsa Charretier are getting a movie based on their comic. So, Love Everlasting. If you haven't read it, as I said, art by Elsa Charretier. Tom King is the writer. Sony announced this week that they picked it up for a film adaptation. They got the director from the movie Room, which was a good movie. He hasn't done a whole lot of other things that I've seen. But the writer of the script, Jane Goldman, I think, has written a lot of good stuff. The first Kick-Ass, the first Kingsman, X-Men First Class, like the sort of plotting for X-Men Days of Future Past. As you can see, like, worked a lot with the same director. But yeah, I think she understands comics. And yeah, I think that's a cool development. Love Everlasting was a 12-issue series, started back in August of 22, and it focuses on this lady that you see on the cover here, Joan Peterson. She discovers that she gets thrust into a new sort of romantic paradigm, a new romantic story, every time that she and her romantic partner in that story declare that they love each other. She get, like, it's maybe a little like Groundhog Day, something like that, where you're just, like, repeating things again and again. So think about that. Not Tommy Wiseau's The Room. I'm talking about just Room with Brie Larson, where she and her son have been, like, stuck in a room by a captor for, like, the kid's whole life. It's honestly an amazing performance by both the kid and Brie. Static got a shout out in pro wrestling. This past weekend's AEW pay-per-view was called Dynasty, and local to me, wrestler Swerve Strickland said, "Whose house? Static's house." That's a riff on his catchphrase. So he wore a suit homaging Static. And that's the DC character. DC character now, originally debuted back in 1993 in Milestone Comics in a preview in the back of Icon, then got his own title the next month. I remember John Paul Leon's art on it. I'm trying to remember the writer. Was it Dennis Cohen? Was it Dwayne McDuffie? They were both working on Milestone stuff now, and I'm jumbling it all up in my head because it's so long ago. But great character. Static is an awesome character. And that is kind of awesome, right? Oh, hi, Bree. We're merging together room and the room. It is a little isekai. But by that same logic, Groundhog Day is isekai. It was McDuffie, everyone saying? God, I miss Dwayne McDuffie. Great writer. Great comics writer. Great. Super great. Anyway, yeah, so he came out dressed in a costume, very obviously homaging Static. And Swerve was competing for the heavyweight title. Sorry, folks, he didn't win. But this outfit had the yellow, white, blue, and he had lightning bolts. He had goggles like Static wore. So it was definitely like very, very intentional. And the reason for that is that AEW and DC are both owned by WB. And so this is just the latest synergy between the two after they made some comics, giving the AEW roster some comic book origins. That's great to hear. Static is really strong. I think it's a great character. In a way, his power is electric based, but it isn't just like as simple as shooting lightning bolts. He uses electricity to do cool things. Like he uses the relationship between electricity and magnetism, and yeah, and he shoots some electric stuff too. Yes. Milestone Media gave up the rights on Static and their other. No, not exactly. Milestone was always published by DC, and it's murky exactly how the rights break down. I'm pretty sure that even though DC publishes the Milestone characters, some of them, I'm pretty sure that the creators get like a profit from any time that they're used. I'm pretty sure. So it's basically like a partially creator-owned thing. Yeah. Wendy's has DC figures, folks. So if you're going to clog up your arteries, you might as well get some DC action figures with it, right? So Wendy's announced a partnership with DC, and it includes figurines, single color, small plastic figurines, kind of like the old Muscle figures, if you remember those, which are based on Kinnikuman. The toys come in 6 sets. They each have 3 figures, so there's 18 minifigures to collect. If you order a combo premium meal through their website or their app, you can get a free kids meal. So just putting that out there, if you wanted to get it at a good value or something like that, and this is your thing, I'll just throw it out. Maybe some of you out there have kids, get them some nugs and milk, and you'll get like some little action figures with trading cards. And I guess this bag too. Send that to the CGC. This paper bag only has a mild amount of grease. 12 of the figures are Batman. Yeah, they've got Arctic Attack Batman. They've got Street Racing Batman. They've got Pants Fell Down Around His Ankles, Damned Batman. All the Batmans. They're available now through early June, so you got a while to go. Whee! The Expanse. I never watched this show. I've heard great things from a bunch of friends. They say that it's pretty realistic, hard sci-fi. That's how they described it to me. But The Expanse was a sci-fi, I guess, book, then a TV show, and now it's been continuing as a comic, and it's doing very, very well as a comic. So Boom Studios is the ones doing this. They've started a Kickstarter for a continuation of the Expanse past its final season in comic book form. It's called A Little Death as a subtitle. The book has rocketed past its, in my opinion, modest $50,000 goal. It's earned $653,000 plus in less than a week. So I guess that this is pretty popular. I feel like those are really good numbers. The creator of The Expanse, James S.A. Corey, is going to co-write this one with one of the actors from the show, a guy named Wes Chatham, and comics author Andy Diggle. And the book's going to be illustrated by Francesco Pisa, who illustrated a previous Expanse comic that Boom put out. This is just a piece of their description because, again, I don't understand what it is. I was just impressed with the numbers on it. But discover the missing adventures of the crew of the Rocinante, leading to the birth of the Laconian Empire. I've heard that it's basically like an outer space show, but without aliens, and I don't think it even has warp drive, right? It's just people in space in the future. Yeah, I believe James S.A. Corey is a pseudonym for a writing team. I believe so. Oh, yep. In fact, just confirmed by Daniel. Thank you. I did. I thought it looked funny. I watched the Naked Gun trailer right away because I really like The Lonely Island, and this is a movie directed by Akiva Schaffer. I think he's pretty damn funny, so I watched it right away. Oh, did it? I didn't think it was going to hit its goal, but it canceled. Interesting. The Stanley Exploitation Kickstarter was canceled. They were never going to hit their goal. Fine with me. That is great. Rocinante. Oh, Rocinante is Don Quixote, right? I forgot. It's been a long time since I read Don Quixote. These days, if I hear Don Quixote, I think of the store in Japan. Okay. Oh, yeah. Liam Neeson is another guy that was on that show, Life is Short, and was really funny. He pretends that he was getting into improv, and he just totally intimidates Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. It's actually very funny. What else we got here? A manga artist is predicting a tsunami. Now, normally, I'd say that's not necessarily news. But this person has actually made a ton of accurate predictions. Let me get into this. I was remembering right. Great. So, Ryo Tatsuki is a manga artist. Back in the 80s, she began keeping a dream journal because she kept having very vivid dreams of stuff that she believed would happen in the future. So she kept a dream journal. And then, by 1999, she turned it into a manga, which is called The Future I Saw. The Future I Saw. Some of her predictions in it definitely came true. So, for instance, in 1992, she predicted Princess Diana's death in 1997. She predicted the 1995 Kobe earthquake, the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, and tsunami that, of course, caused that Fukushima reactor disaster. She predicted that there would be a earthquake tsunami that year. She wrote in her diary about COVID-19. She didn't call it that, of course, but she did say 25 years before it happened, she said, in 25 years, an unknown virus will come in 2020, will disappear after peaking in April, and appear again 10 years later. That's ominous. She has now predicted a tsunami 3 times bigger than the Tohoku one that will strike this July. And she says that it would affect Japan, Taiwan, Indonesia, and the Philippines. So, I don't really put much stock in it, but as far as predictions go, she's got a good track record. So you weigh that however you want to weigh that. big earthquakes, though. I'm sure it is a coincidence, and that it's sort of like, vague enough. The one she took in her dream journal was specifically like Diana will die, so it was like, and the people were like, when the Fukushima thing happened and then COVID-19 happened, people really started looking back at her book and going, wow, she's kind of accurate. I think I could be very happy living my life in Japan, but I don't think I'll ever get to it. It's just too complex to like sell off just about everything you own and move over there. You have to either be rich or marry someone from there. I don't know. I would be very happy to live there, I think. Based on my travels. I'm sure she got a bunch wrong, too. Yes, I'm not trying to say don't go to Japan in July. Although, aside from this, I will say don't bother going to Japan in July. It's way too hot. You'll be miserable. Possibly. I gave you like a quote of like what she said about how people interpreted the virus. That's a good gig. Rio the Psychic Girl. That's not bad. Judge Dredd Megazine is getting smaller. So, there's 2000 AD, where Judge Dredd debuted, and then there's the spin-off magazine called Judge Dredd Megazine that focuses way more on just Judge Dredd. It's going to slim down starting in its April issue, according to an email that they sent out to subscribers. Starting in issue 479, which is April 16th, the title is going to reduce its page count from 128 pages to 96 pages in order to refocus exclusively on new material. They've always had a few stories that are reprints of older stuff. They're saying that they're only going to do new stories now. So it's going to stay at the cover price, £6.99 or $12.99. It's going to remain the same, but a few less pages. Forthcoming series that they teased includes Megatropolis, Dreadnoughts, Judge Anderson, and Armitage. Judge Dredd Microzine. Yes, there you go. Owen beat me to it. So again, I think that's just a factor of the increase in cost to produce something. So they just had to either increase the price or decrease the number of pages. So they've just decided that they're going to get rid of the reprint stuff and focus only on new stories. Which is a reasonable enough compromise. Yeah, it's not awesome. Godzilla comes to your comic shop? To help promote the new Godzilla ongoing series, IDW is offering for comic shops this retailer exclusive cover that can feature their logo. The art is by Nicola, I'm going to butcher this name, but Sismesia? I don't know. If I heard it, I could repeat it. I've never heard it pronounced. It shows Godzilla destroying a comic shop, and obviously you can send them your logo and put it in there, and that becomes your comic shop. IDW says stores only need to order a minimum of 500 copies. For a custom cover, that is low, but 500 copies is a lot to sell. So you have to assume that you've got a big fan base that want to see your shop represented on a comic shop. I'm Ron Burgundy. Shishmedija. NEC is down to 2 stores, right? I don't think that they're going to do it. But who knows? Maybe. Anyway, you've got until June 16th. There's the website if your comic store wants to do that. I mean, presumably, they say comic stores. I don't know why they don't reach out to like some of the humongous YouTube channels, right? Like, I'm not big enough to justify buying 500 copies of it, but there's probably some channels that could. You want to see him destroy Midtown Comics? It's a fun idea. 500 is small in the scheme of things, but that's still a lot of copies to sell. This is a blast. Some comic shop owners tracked down a thief. I talk to you guys all the time about, oh, it's too bad a comic shop was robbed. This is awesome. Yes, let's open a store together and we'll order 1,000. Why not? We'll go broke within a month. This is just a fun story. Okay, so it starts off, of course, with a robbery, though. Crush Comics. That's in the Bay Area. The owner, Josh Hunter, and store manager, Cole Sanders, found that their store had been burglarized back on March 22nd. But then it gets interesting. One of Hunter's employees saw that one of the wall books, because they had all their valuable wall books stolen, it was on sale on eBay less than 12 hours after the robbery, easily identifiable because it was a sketch cover. They're like, that looks like one that's been on our wall. So Hunter went ahead and bid on the book, and that gave him the seller's name and address. This is a dumb criminal. Hunter then checked that person's name and found tons of merchandise for sale online in the area, things like unopened Lego sets and other comics. So he started reaching out to other stores in the area going like, hey, were you robbed? Yeah, I was. Were you robbed? Yup, I was. Okay, I think I found the guy. Tells the police. The very next day, the Alameda County Sheriff's Department served a search warrant at the home of 29-year-old Norella Amiri of Livermore, where they said they found tens of thousands of dollars of comic books, collectibles, and Lego sets, the majority of which were returned to their respective stores. I love that. That was like one time my sister had her checkbook stolen, and the guy wrote a check to himself in cash. They were easily able to catch him. Yeah. That's not good. That means, probably some jail time. That means some jail time when there's that much value. I would read that comic. Not a smooth criminal. I admire it. The store was just like, okay, you know what? We're going to do all the detective work. We'll just hand that over to the police. You can take it from here. Razor actually also sent me a link to this one, and I had it because it's a good story, but thank you. So, that I don't know. I didn't see any articles that showed me what the sketch cover was, but anyway. I think that's a pretty good story. Last piece of news I got. Rebecca Burke. I've talked about her a bunch on this show. I just found her story interesting. She's been banned from visiting the U.S. for 10 years. Something tells me she doesn't care about that. So Rebecca Burke was famously detained by ICE recently when she was turned back to the U.S. from trying to get into Canada over a visa issue. Well, now she did an interview this week with The Guardian, pretty big UK newspaper. And she talks about how there was a lot of bureaucracy. When she would try to get an answer from something, they'd be like, well, we're the private company that runs the prison, but the people that make the decisions is ICE. We're not ICE. We can't do anything. We just have to process you. So she didn't have that. She was incarcerated for 19 days, even though she had the money to fly home and was happy to do so. So the point is to process people and, either clear them or get them out of the country. And she's like, yeah, I'm happy to leave the country at this point. She discusses, I really do recommend reading the interview. She discusses the conditions, the people that she met, the confusing way that the border police basically got her to talk to them without letting her talk to any legal representation. So she was really under the impression that she was signing a simple sort of document that was going to get her released right away. And instead they were like, no, you just admitted that you came here to work. And she's like, that's not quite what I meant. And they're like, well, you signed it. You're going to jail. And so anyway, she's now banned from visiting the US for 10 years. She's currently making a comic. She's been doing these studies of like, herself, the inmates, the prison conditions. I think that that'll make for a very interesting comic book. So, yeah. This is your friendly reminder that ICE was only created in 2002 because George Bush was worried Al-Qaeda was going to illegally immigrate. Yeah, ICE is so outdated. So outdated. We already have border control and police and stuff like that, Homeland Security. ICE is just trying to justify its existence, in my opinion. Concerns about this stuff is why Zoe Thorogood is avoiding going to the U.S. for a while. There have been a bunch of comics creators I've seen that have said that they've declined invitations to the U.S. I've even heard Larry Hama is a guy from New York, right? Famous writer of G.I. Joe and many other great comics, Avengers, Wolverine, all sorts of great stuff. Lived here his whole life, served his country in Vietnam, in country. But he's Asian, and he was invited to the Niagara Falls Comic-Con in Canada, and so he went and talked to some lawyer friends, and they were like, yeah, there is a small chance that, like, they could try to arrest you if you, like, made money over there or something and then tried to come back here. Like, they're being really weird about people's visas and travel and stuff. They're like, it's probably not worth it. So he, like, politely declined. Yeah, he doesn't want to deal with the whole mess. So it's too bad. I don't like being in a country that you could argue very easily is the bad guy. I think that most of our citizens are wonderful people, but we're in a really bad situation these days. And I don't blame comics creators from abroad from being nervous about visiting here, especially after what happened to Rebecca Burke. It's bonkers that happened. Absolutely nuts. I'm going to bring up something else. I'm going to present another camera, and we'll talk about some of the comics that came out this week. I think that'll be fun. All right? We're going to have some fun, if that's okay with all of you. Let's see. Add to stage. Let's do it like this. So I didn't get a whole lot this week, but honestly, that was fine because last week I felt like I spent way too much. Way too much. I got a whole whopping 4 books to talk about. I will say that I really enjoyed this issue of Ultimate X-Men. It's another super strong one. Last one I didn't like as much as issue 12, but this one I like a lot too. And I also just want to say, I really do think Peach creates striking covers. Peach Momoko does create striking covers. It's amazing that, she didn't grow up reading or making comics because I think she's figured out how to tell a very fluid story. But she did have a lot of experience, as a painter, creating one dynamic, eye-catching image. And I think that she always does that. But this one's cool because it's actually got, like, crazy, mutant action. It's got, like, battles between people with their powers. And it's happening on the astral plane, so it gets really weird and surreal. I think that there's some great energy to this, some great character design, even though it's like, it's kind of simplified, but at the same time, Peach is both writing and drawing / painting this. So she also hasn't had a fill-in or anything. It's over a year. I'm impressed with how fast she works. I think you will, EJ, and I'm sorry that you have to deal with the stress of thinking about that at all. Just have your paperwork lined up, and you should be okay. Can't wait for volume 2. Were you reading it trade style? Peach is interesting. I did. I was not a huge fan of Hush 2 story-wise. I felt like it was kind of confusing and not that interesting either. The art was pretty darn good, especially the black and white pages. That was good. Peach is the Dom Toretto of comics. She's fast and furious. That's totally fair. That's totally fair. And if you haven't read it, I'll just say it's a great take on X-Men because it's got a bunch of existing characters, but in different sort of versions and permutations together. It's also, though, a book about, high school culture in Japan. And so that adds something different. This one literally made me almost cry because there's a flashback here that's absolutely heartbreaking where main character Hisako, Armor is her superhero name. She was friends with this guy Tsubasa who gave her an what do you call it? Omamori. It's like a charm, okay? And then she lost it somehow, and some kids found it and were like making fun of it because it's old fashioned and everything like that. And then this kid said that it was Hisako's, and she pretended that it wasn't, and that she didn't really know Tsubasa, her friend. He gets made fun of and bullied in class, and this kid actually ends up taking his life over the bullying. It's heartbreaking. It's really, really emotional. I love how she decided to color these flashbacks. It's a little bit less of the, watercolor and gouache, and I think colored pencils and stuff. It gives it a great texture. Excuse me. Anyway, I think that this was emotional and also had good action and also some good horror stuff. Peach is really good at like horror stuff. This is a character like dealing with like psychic stuff from the Shadow King, but it's really creepy. I'm not going to show everything in it. I'll just say that this issue balanced character drama, action, and emotional stuff and horror stuff in really good measure. I really liked it. There was one part I was a little confused at, though. I will say that. There's this psychic battle going on, and then it cuts from the psychic battle to this flashback, and then it cuts to modern day, and I was a little confused where, these were some of the characters that were just in that fight, and I don't quite understand how that psychic battle fight quite resolved itself. So there is one bit of confusion, I'll say, that I had. But it wasn't enough to break my enjoyment of the story. I just sort of assumed, okay, everybody sort of left the psychic plane. It's a really strong issue, folks. Don't forget to tell the audience how crisp and refreshing that drink was. Nothing like a Diet Mountain Dew. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not quite the only person that had something there. The panel with the blank expression may look very cartoony, but it makes sense in context. Yeah, to talk about bullying to the extent that they're implying that a character, unalived himself over it, it's pretty serious stuff. In the interview I did with Peach on my main channel, she said that was something Marvel didn't really want them to do, but they did it. So, and I think that they're treating it very respectfully, and it's a very important element of the character and the world that they're in. I think it will. I think that my confusion, I sort of set that aside going, I think that this will be resolved a little bit later because the story intentionally jumps to a flashback and then sort of like a subplot with other characters. So I go, okay, there's something maybe missing there, but I do think it's probably intentional. It's so relatable. It's so simple, but so relatable. And that negative energy really seems to be what powers the Shadow King. It's also just in the mainstream X-Men comics, Shadow King is a psychic mutant, and he's been able to keep his mind outliving his body. He's moved his mind to other people. Like he can do that. If it's like, you know, his body's dying or something, he can take over somebody else. Very creepy. Long time, like, and the fact that he's got like similar powers to Professor X means he's a good foil sometimes. He's not the best X-Men villain, but I think he's very good. I think he's underrated. The idea of making this version of Shadow King a nerd who's like a little obsessed with the main character and also bullied a bit makes it way more relatable. Just got back from Vancouver, no kidding. I was saying earlier how there's so many great YouTubers that are in the Pacific Northwest, and Bronze Age Nerd is one of them, folks. He came to my signing that was in Tacoma about like a week and a half ago, and his show goes live at 8 p.m. Pacific, so in an hour and a half, he'll do a show. And he talks with Big B McFly. They'll riff on some of the news. They'll talk about collections, but they'll also always have a main topic, something about comics that the whole audience and the hosts can all talk about. It's a really nice format. That's true. I forgot about that. But in the Legion show, that's right. Shadow King was basically re-envisioned to be the Aubrey Plaza character, wasn't it? I forgot about that. Peach works so hard, and from the bit I've been able to learn from talking to her, as well as knowing, the scripter on this, Zach Davison, and I probably don't give Zach enough credit, and I'm sorry for that. It's because I look at the visuals and I think of Peach so much. But, Zach says, that's just Peach. Like, she compulsively needs to work. And that's amazing. I don't know. Tonight's topic is crossovers we want to see in comics. And I think you use this as your thumbnail, but it's definitely one that I've always wanted. I have always wanted to see the Ninja Turtles meet Daredevil. They just would fit so well together. I said that I did a Seattle meetup just a couple days ago, and it was big. So I might do one again, but it'll probably be a while. I don't want to burn out the audience. I want to talk about a couple other comics. I'll talk about the Lucky Devils. The Lucky Devils is just a badass supernatural fantasy story in a way. It's fantasy because a lot of what's happening is being driven by main characters who are devils. They live in hell, and hell is a bureaucracy where you have to, you get a single sin that you can use, and you have to try to corrupt people. That's just your job. And if you're successful in having them ruin other people's lives, you can get access to another sin and corrupt more people through them because you've like elevated their station in the world. It'd be like the idea that, if you were a jerk doctor, lawyer, politician, you're going to affect more people. So that's their job. But the main characters in this are Rake and Collar. That's just their name. And this is like a little flashback showing like how they met at like a beatnik club, which is both funny and sort of informs their philosophy, where they've just decided you can't get ahead with the crappy system hell has. So they're actually trying to improve the lives of two nice people. Like not corrupt them, just improve their lives. And that damages and maybe destroys hell. I've repeated this a lot. Here's something really funny. In this, Rake has to, or wait, is he Collar? Collar, sorry. Who's who? I forget all of a sudden. Yeah, sorry, Collar. Collar is the male guy. He has to go, check in on his human. And so look what they do. While there's a subplot of one of the humans that he's not corrupting, that Rake is, you get these tiny little Sergio Aragones-esque border drawings of Rake making his way through things. At one point in these pages, he goes into like a monster and shoots out of its butt. It goes like it just goes across all these margins until he jumps in to this guy's life. It's both funny and an interesting idea about how we affect others. It's interesting to think about like how our actions can affect others, and there's a lot of philosophical talk about what is good and what is bad. How do you define it? There's so many different philosophies out there to try to understand, the human condition and how we define what is good and what is bad. Because it varies from culture to culture, from time to time, from person to person. There's a lot there to talk about. If you ever saw the show, it was a sitcom not too long ago. What was it called? The Good Place. And how The Good Place actually spent a lot of its time talking about different philosophical ideas of how to define good and bad. The Lucky Devils does something a little bit similar. So I like it. I like that it's an interesting story. I like that it's kind of funny. I love the twists and turns it takes. But I also love that they talk on a philosophical level about good and bad and how you would even determine something like that. It's really, really good. So if you like The Good Place, by the way, I think you'd like The Lucky Devils. It's a different take on the material, but there's some similarities. I really like this issue, though. This was a good one. Feral is starting a new arc. The first 10 issues, each had an arc where house cats were, out in the wild and trying to find their way home. And then the second arc was them being trapped by a hoarder, like a cat lady. And now they're back in the wild. And the reason, this is a crazy world is that there's a version of rabies out there that basically is the zombie plague. So you've just got characters on the run, just like you see in anything from Dawn of the Dead to The Walking Dead. The cats are just trying to find safe haven. And in some ways, that even reminds me of, classic stories like, hold on. What's the story with the rabbits where they're all trying to find a new home? It's based on a classic Greek play even. Watership Down. Watership Down. It's a little bit sometimes like Watership Down. Gromit's is fantastic. Totally agree. So, yeah, thanks everybody. I was having, there's the slight delay there. There's something like that. And you get to meet a bunch of different animals that all have different personalities and backgrounds, but they do act like animals. Even though they talk to each other and sort of reason things out and have relationships, they still act like animals. They run from trouble. There's a mama cat and her kittens just tend to know to stick next to her. It's really sad. In this one, Gigi has been in a car accident, and I think she's lost an eye. That's kind of sad. One of the cats is in a collar, so she can't get out of that. There's one cat that was declawed, so he runs into a problem here. They're being chased by a dog, and they all try to run up a tree. Well, Lord doesn't have claws, so he can't run up a tree, and he's just all he can do is basically hiss. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. It reminds me of classic stuff like Watership Down, or I want to say even the Odyssey. Because it's going to be this epic journey where you have to the hero and his team just gets as far from home, what they know of as home, as far from home as possible, and go on sort of the classic hero's journey. If you've ever read Joseph Campbell's stuff, before ultimately returning home changed. And I thought that this was going to be, a 6 to 12 issue book like Stray Dogs, the previous thing that they did, but I'm realizing now that Tony Fleeks and Trish Forstner have a much, much bigger idea with Feral. This is a big, big story. We've seen characters come and go, and it's fantastic. It's just fantastic. I love it. It becomes more epic as the situation changes, and it all feels so organic too. It isn't just like, okay, we were with the hoarder, now we start a new story. It all flows, but you can see that there's sort of like arc breaks. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily depressing. It's framed a little bit horror, but also a little bit epic adventure. It is intense. It feels too intense. It might be for some people. I'm not saying that it's for everybody. Oh, Derek Kirkham is just basically taking a hiatus. He's working on another book called The Royals. But last I talked to him, he did say that he was, he had lots of ideas for The Last Mermaid, that he does intend to come back to it. I think that like the big concern is promoting it, getting people to read that book, and making sure that sometimes a small break can let you come back with a good marketing push. I love that book. I'll be first in line to promote it, but I do think Feral is super strong. I guess I could understand how it might not be for everybody, because it's hard to see animals, and specifically pets, get hurt or be in danger. So that is a thing. That can happen, but that's what gives it its stakes and its emotions. I do like the main characters quite a bit. They've got some complex relationships with one another. And one other bonus thing at the back, if you send in a picture of your cat, like they're printing them. My cats haven't showed up yet, but I hope someday. Last book that I read this week was the latest volume of Dandadan, volume 12 already, which blows my mind because it feels new to me, but I guess it's been going for a little while. As always, Yokinobu Tatsu has created some beautiful artwork and some very funny ideas with like teenagers getting supernatural powers and battling against aliens with like wild, crazy forms and abilities. Like there's an alien invasion, and these teenagers are basically the only ones that can stop it because the rest of the world isn't even aware of what's going on. Yeah, hot grandma, says Penguin. I agree. Well, wait a minute. Not disturbingly hot. I love the anime. I love the manga. I also just like that opening theme to Dandadan is so damn good. I love it. I think the only thing that people object to is that, like, every once in a while, they focus on, how sexy some of the characters are. But I feel like that's still pretty innocent stuff, to be honest. I don't think that like it gets sexual per se. And honestly, there's a lot of romantic comedy at its core. I've also learned, though, as I continue to read this, while the action and stuff is great and the jokes are great, the book does best when it focuses strongly on Momo Ayase. She's like the main girl in it. And there's a lot of stuff in here about like the supporting cast. You need some of that because it's good to have all these different relationships, different abilities, different personalities. It adds conflict and stuff like that. But the stuff with Momo is always the most interesting. The secondary lead is this nerd, Takakura. And the stuff with him is good too. But the stuff when like they're separated, Momo's stuff is always the most interesting to me. Although it's even more interesting when they're together. So I would just say that like these subplots with the supporting characters, that's the only thing that would keep this issue in a way from being like one of my favorite volumes. It's awesome. I read through it and I was like excited by the fights. I laughed at a bunch of the jokes, so I enjoyed it a lot. I love this manga. I would just say that like the core of what makes it the most interesting is the relationship between Momo and Takakura. That's my favorite stuff. And Momo is definitely the lead. They're both, it's a co-lead book, it's a two-hander, but Momo is a little more important. She drives a little bit more of the story, but it needs them all. It needs them all. Yeah, I like because they're so different, but I believe in their friendship, and I believe in how they're sort of slowly falling for each other too. I really believe in it. There's going to be a movie in July. I'll be there for that. I just love this book. I really do. Yeah, I've been reading a lot of manga that I enjoy lately. That's for sure. You know, even like coming across older stuff like Slam Dunk. Boy, was that exceptional. But Dandadan, as far as what's coming out right now new, Dandadan is my favorite. Spy Family would probably be my second favorite of what's coming out right now. And then Berserk is still really strong. So those are some of my favorites. I've got a little bit of time, actually. I guess I could do a little inking if you guys want to just hang out and chat. Season 2 will be a movie, but not in July. I'm thinking of Chainsaw Man. You know, Chainsaw Man, I really love the artwork. The story in that one feels very sort of nihilistic to me. I love the short manga by Tatsuki Fujimoto. Love it. In fact, I just got another of his anthology mangas with short stories. Love that stuff. I'm familiar with a little bit of Ishinomori. Yeah, there wouldn't be stuff like Power Rangers without him. Hey, Chris, just dropping in to say I love the recent episode. How silly that they recalled that Superman comic because he was drinking a beer. And honestly, it's funny that you say that because I really think he might have been meant to be drinking a root beer. So I think that DC overreacted on that one. There's another handful of interesting recall stories, and I may just do that as like a quick little Patreon exclusive. They need something. Yeah. It's a sad character in a sad world. I like a few other things out there these days that are new. I enjoy Kaiju number 9. That's pretty good. I enjoy hashtag DRCL. I would just say that like easily my favorite is Dandadan. Like I get so excited when a new issue of that comes out. So excited. Can Superman get drunk? According to the movie Superman 3, yes. But I think unique things have to happen. Or Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is, of course, being adapted into a film and is a fantastic 8-issue story, by the way. Bilquis Evely and Tom King. Supergirl literally travels to an alien planet without a yellow sun to let herself get depowered enough to enjoy a beer now that she's old enough to drink. So yeah, there are ways to get drunk. There are ways to get drunk. Let me add this back. I had just been inking this silly little thing of my days as a real life superhero last time, but take off my glasses and do a little more. What are you folks reading these days for comics or manga? Indie, mainstream, old, new, doesn't matter to me. Just curious what people are reading that they really love right now. Anything you're binging? Oh, and then I have a really interesting question about comics. You're nice. Reading Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time graphic novelization. That sounds fun. I just found out like when I was hanging out with Comic Drake a couple days ago, we walked past a Lego store and I just looked in and I saw that they have a Legend of Zelda Lego set. I didn't know about that. I want that so badly. I don't know. ABC Warriors, Kid Eternity, and Santos Sisters. Strong. That's awesome. That's a great mix. Ghost Fleet, yeah. I would say it's a decent read. Yeah, that's early Donny Cates and early Daniel Warren Johnson with something to prove, you know? Not necessarily as fine-tuned as some of the stuff they come up with, but some strong ideas, some strong art. I did hear that Nine Inch Nails is doing the music for it. That's awesome. DC Justice League, nice. Absolute Superman. Mm-hmm. Rewatching Andor, getting ready for season 2. Oh man, sorry that's the way you had to learn. I guess that there could be worse ways to learn. Tower Dungeon, right on. Little Bird hardcover. Satisfied with Plastic Man No More and DC Horror. Great covers on DC Horror. The Tyler Crook covers, those things were awesome. I like Redcoat. Yeah, that was good. What else? Went to Permanent Damage in LA, got to meet Bob Fingerman, the Cosmic Lion guys, Simon Hanselman, the guys doing the Humans comic, and the Santos sisters. Very cool. Very cool. I'm so excited for Andor season 2. That was a fantastic first season. Fantastic. Here's my question. This was asked to me online, posed to me by Emilio Lopez, the colorist, and it's such a good question, and it's so hard to define. Okay, you know how sometimes people will go like, what's your favorite cult classic movie? There's lots of movies where, you know, it just wasn't a big hit at the time, but it's gone on to be something awesome. Like, for instance, the movie The Thing with Kurt Russell by John Carpenter. That bombed when it was in theaters, but it's a fantastic movie. That's a good example of like a cult classic. The question was, what's a cult classic comic book? And I said I had to come up with rules for that to make sense. And I thought the rules should be, it has to either be a comic that, you know, had a short run or was canceled. It has to be, because otherwise it was just too big and mainstream to like argue that it's a cult classic. And then it had to be largely ignored when it was originally out. That's tricky, because most comics get canceled very quickly if they aren't performing well, and so they don't have time to develop into being like a great full story that you could call a cult classic, whereas a movie comes out fully formed. So, you know, it's done. But some of the ones I was thinking that could possibly be considered a cult classic comic book, I said The Exterminators and Enigma. Now, both of those were Vertigo titles. They got to tell their full story, but I felt like that they were examples of books that were sort of overlooked during their run. Do you guys agree with something like that? See, was The Crow a cult classic? I would say that it was an indie book that was a pretty big hit, and that's why it stayed. Maybe it is. I am willing to hear that argument out, because I did think of that one. It did jump to me. See, but Love and Rockets is still going. Like, Love and Rockets has been going for so long, I don't know that you could really... It's indie, but I don't know that it's a cult classic. Do you know? Scud the Disposable Assassin could possibly fit the bill. Yeah, that's a good argument. See, exactly. Everybody's going to have a different definition, and I do understand that. See, I'd say Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. I mean, that was sold for like decades in Hot Topic. That book sold millions. Maybe. Although, like, things get reassessed and then republished, but maybe. Stray Bullets is not a bad argument. I mean, it's a pretty long run, but it's a little unknown. I think it's fantastic, just exceptional. Just exception. Maybe. No, I don't know Blue Flames, so maybe that would work. Enigma is a good call. And Scud, I think Cyber 6 I think could count. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know about Cyber 6. Rocketeer, Kick-Ass, Preacher. I might buy you a Rocketeer, but Kick-Ass and Preacher were both huge hits. I don't think you could call those cult classics. Those were huge. Faust, maybe. Yeah, Faust I think you could count. Cerebus I think was too long running. I think it like when you get 300 issues of a story, I don't think it's cult classic anymore. That's a great point. Maybe it shouldn't apply to a comic specifically, but maybe it should apply to an artist or a writer, somebody that like is under the radar. That's an interesting argument, actually. Whoa, the light just like got really bright for a minute. Maybe I did. My body was like, you're so white. People don't understand. We need to make you translucent. I really like that argument that it could be an artist or something like that, as compared to just a comic. Because, yeah, I think that cult classic is harder to define for comics compared to movies, specifically because of how a movie comes out and it's fully formed, whereas a comic is, usually released on an ongoing basis. Dynamite Thor. I think Black Kiss could count. That's a fair assessment. I don't think a lot of people know about Black Kiss. I think most of the stuff that's come out from Marvel or DC is not going to. Most, not all, most. I would say the original Omega the Unknown is a potential argument for a cult classic, and that was Marvel. I think Black Hawk is too long running and too well known. I know not the mainstream doesn't necessarily know Black Hawk, but I think a lot of comics fans do. I think Johnny Dynamite could be something that counts. Anyway, I don't have a definitive answer for any of it, but I thought it was an interesting sort of mental exercise to go through of what you would do to define a comic as a cult classic. But I do also like the idea of doing it with creators. I think that sounds fun. You all thinking outside the box. You all, everybody. You all, everybody. Does anybody remember that was like, what was his name? Dominic Monaghan was one of the cast members of that show Lost, and he was supposedly from like a band that had a one-hit wonder. And I'd probably, honestly, even though I watched the show, I'd probably forget that song, except for the fact that Todd McFarlane made little statue action figures of Lost. And then those figures ended up being sold at Five Below for $5. So I got a couple for $5. I was like, yeah, all right. And they had like sound activated chips where they'd say their catchphrase. Well, I got the one of whoever the character was that Dominic Monaghan played. I really can't remember anymore because I've never rewatched Lost. But after I got it, I wasn't that excited about it. So I left it in the back of my car. And what it meant was that, like, whenever Chrissy and I were driving anywhere, sometimes the figure would like get bumped and we'd just hear, You all, everybody. You all, everybody. So we always heard that in my car for like years. Drive Shaft's biggest hit. Did everybody hate that actor? I didn't know that. Charlie, that's right. That's right. Not Penny's Boat. Body Bags is a cult comic. Sure, I could see that. I'm sorry I didn't catch everything. I just, yeah, I was, and I was never like that motivated to get rid of it from the back of my car because I legit found that kind of funny that whenever I wasn't expecting it, because it wasn't an every time thing, but it was a sometimes thing. All of a sudden, from the back of my car, you all, everybody, it cracks me up. So now you understand a little bit more about what amuses me. I think Steranko's Nick Fury was pretty popular and pretty well remembered. I don't think you understood the assignment. Johnny Ryan? Maybe. Maybe. Well, I don't know minimum wage, so maybe that would count. Hey, Steve's here. One sugar-free Baja Blast for Chris. Let's go Mets. So you know what I found out, Steve? It's a regional thing where they carry sugar-free. They may carry it at Taco Bell's, but they don't carry it in stores here in the Pacific Northwest. I looked it up, and apparently sugar-free Baja Blast is sold regionally. But I still appreciate the support, and I hope you'll be okay with me drinking a regular Diet Mountain Dew. Girl Scouts? Is Girl Scouts a cult classic? Maybe. I mean, it's got a pretty good following, but maybe. Okay, a bunch of people saying that they like minimum wage. That's if we're gonna say, is there an artist who's like a cult classic artist? I think Al Columbia is a very good option. Very good. Dave Cooper. Maybe. Maybe, baby. You know what? I'm going to switch to a technical pen for the rest of it. Trying to just sort of indicate some of that texture you see on buckles and stuff. And then I'm going to go back over this and add some different like lines to indicate some shading stuff. Oh, I guess I'm not zoomed in enough for you guys to see that too well. Let me see if I can zoom in even more. Oops, that's too much. Rare Brit Fiends, maybe. Boneyard Press. Yeah. I love Cordo Maltese. A lot of Rick Veitch could probably count as cult classic. Yeah. Ralph Snart. It's a good call. I think that was the only comic that now did that was an original idea. I think everything else now did was licensed. So I'm sure a lot of people here do not know Ralph Snart. Which is fine. Just saying. Michael, I want you to behave. This is my impression of... Who is this an impression of? Who was the dad on Growing Pains? This is my impression of the dad from Growing Pains. Yes, that was my impression of Dr. Doom. Shade the Changing Man? Maybe. Alan Thicke here. TV's dad. Does that sound like him? I was just doing the voice and I thought this sounded a bit like Alan Thicke. Maybe I need to do more impressions on this show. What's your least favorite Tom King read? Well, I like a lot of his stuff, so this is going to be a little hard. Also, not sure if it qualifies cult classic, but Robinson Starman is dynamite. I think that the Robinson run on Starman is pretty well respected and fairly well known, so I don't think that could count as a cult classic. My least favorite, I know that there have been some series by him that I didn't dig as much as others, but it's not coming to me. I mean, I liked Mr. Miracle. I liked Vision. Loved Human Target. Loved Woman of Tomorrow. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Danger Street was my least favorite, but I still like that. Oh, see, I've heard that Heroes in Crisis was not well received, but I haven't actually read that, so I might not like that. I read the regular Batman run. I didn't read the follow-up Batman Catwoman, so I don't know. Now the world don't move to the beat of just one drum. I wrote that. And I want everybody to remember that. I gave that to you, America. You're welcome on behalf of all of Canada. Canada's Alan Thicke here. Talking about the nonsense that my son gets up to. Let's see. What impressions have I done on this show? I've done all the presidents of the United States. Several cartoon characters, like what was one that was requested that I don't think I'd done before? Skeletor! I don't like being nice. I like being evil. Voices are fun. I would love to have been able to be a voice actor. That would have been so much fun. The Tick, maybe. Starman, not sure. Strangers in Paradise, maybe. Milk and Cheese. Scud the Disposable Assassin. Love and Rockets, I think, is too long running. Tank Girl, I saw a couple people throw out, so I guess that makes sense. Chadwick's Concrete? Yeah, that's fair. Usagi Yojimbo and Gru are both so long running that I don't think they quite count as cult classics. Your Alan Thicke sounds like a Phil Hartman Simpsons character. Your Honor, no. That's not true. What was the lawyer's name? I'm Lionel Hutz, attorney at law. The mighty monarch. I'm Skeletor. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Nick. I've never tried it before. I'd have to work on that one. Scotch, scotch, scotch goes down in my belly. Do you really love the lamp brick, or are you just saying that you love it because that's something you see? Quickly, there's no time. A wolf is the most dangerous animal you'll ever come across. A wolf will isolate you from your family and your friends and make you feel bad about yourself. A wolf is the most dangerous animal in all of creation. Steve, thanks for the super chat. I liked Heroes in Crisis. I mean, it dealt with mental health. I told Tom King that the second read-through got me to go get help for my mental health. You know, if it reached even one person, I'd say that that's a success, but I haven't read the story, so I don't have a take on it. Can you imagine a world without lawyers? I think I could probably do a better, oh, hi, you got me reading. I'm Troy McClure. I don't know. I'd have to practice that one, too. I've never seen Space Ghost, so I don't think I know how to do those voices. You like Huey Lewis in the news? You like... Oi, governor, you like Huey Lewis in the news? It's me, Christian Bale. It seems to me that I was a little too cocky and that several of these would require quite a bit of practice to actually do decently. So I got cocky and I got shown to be a buffoon. And that's just how it goes. Consider yourself at home. Consider yourself part of the family. We've taken to you so strong. It's clear we're going to get along. There's my impression of a Cockney accent. The last one could convince someone to let you sweep their chimney. Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim charoo. I'm sweeping chimneys because that's all I can do. Yeah. You get songs. It's like you're going to go back in time. There's my Huey Lewis in the news impression. Oh, yeah. Welcome to Portland, you know. That's my Portland accent. Would you like a jelly baby? Would you like a jelly baby? It's just me, Tom Baker, as the doctor. Sorry, everyone. I guess I got a little silly and did some bad impressions. I thought that I was going to nail a few that I'd never tried before, but I just don't think it happened. Hopefully I learned a lesson. Never do impressions again. Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius. Great Scott, Marty! I was just joking because I don't know what a Portland accent is. My daughter is watching along and you inspired her to draw. She's doing dress designs now. Nice. That's awesome. Drawing is fun. Yes, thank you so much for not supporting that Kickstarter that exploited me and made me look like a doofus. I appreciate it. Nuff said, true believer. I don't know what a Portland accent would be. I really don't. That would be very subtle. Let's see, 7:15. Dress designing is a complex. I mean, people go to college for that specific thing. But some people have the talent to just have ideas for designs in that regard, and I admire that. It seems like the new episode on comic tropes is doing pretty well, so I'm glad people liked it. The next one I'm going to do is going to, at least I've started it. I think I can do it. A deep dive into the history and techniques of Joe Kubert. I think he's a pretty successful artist who definitely, had a big impact on the industry, both through his art and his school. So I think that that's good. Thank you. Sometimes dead is better. Welcome to Portland, Maine. Things up here are a little dangerous. We've got a pet cemetery out back, Judd. And I'd recommend not taking your cats there. Oh, thank you. I have a friend who does fashion design. She moved to New York to do it. She once showed me her portfolio. Blew my mind. The Kubert School put out all of the correspondence school videos on their YouTube. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Hi, I'm Chris. I'm from Boston. Did I nail it? Legally, I did. What you want to do is go pick up the comics down at the store. Make sure that you leave them a tip, you lousy goof nuts. You know who does a good New England accent? Really obscure person named Bill Burr. Tells jokes. He sounds a little bit like he's from Boston, or at least New England. Have you ever thought of doing an episode on Scott McCloud's Understand Making and Reinventing Comics? I have considered it a little, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to just recap, his lessons. That wouldn't be satisfying to me in any way. Now, if I could talk about the impact that it's had, that would be interesting. But I've thought about it, and I'm not 100% sure how to measure that. How to measure that success. I need to think about it. Oh, I doubt any of the Kuberts really want to talk to me, but that would be cool. It's an interesting idea. How do you like them apples? Yeah, Boston. That's right. I parked my car over in Harvard. Parked it by the mall. What do you need, new tires? Mickey Mouse is Daniel Plainview. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. Never heard of that. Yeah, that was a joke. I know that Bill Burr is not obscure. Bill Burr is awesome. I think that Netflix US is showing El Eternat. I hope it is. If it isn't, I'll just get a VPN so that I can watch the Argentina version. Because I need to see that. Yeah. And that's this month, I believe. There's a few things coming out this month. I mean, there's a few movies. There's season 2 of Andor, and the Eternaut hits Netflix. I think it's. Did they say that it's 4 episodes or 6? I don't know, but I really want to see that. I don't know what Screamboat is. Is that about Mickey Mouse? Is that like, is that because he's in the public domain? Oh my God. I've never been able to duplicate a New Orleans accent, folks. It's like a New York accent, but with a Southern drawl. It's such a weird accent. When I lived down there, I could never figure it out. I could never figure that one out. I also can't do like, a South South African accent. So I don't think you'll ever see me doing a good uh, impression of, that is, of Elon. I don't do a good impression of Elon. I have no idea how he sounds. I can't do a South African accent. Anyway, folks, I'm going to call it a night. I've had a wonderful time chatting with everybody about comics, but yeah, I'm going to get some food, and I agreed to go see a movie late tonight with a friend of mine. So I forget exactly what it's called. It's some horror movie riffing on like 1980s camp horror movies, like movies, set at a camp. So I told my friend I'd go see it with him. I've got time to make it. Gonna fit all that in. So I had a good time though tonight. I hope you did as well. I'm curious to see what kind of comics we've got to chat about next week. I'm already thinking about what I'm gonna pick up, but I'm also giving like real thought to like what I can afford to cut. And you may notice I did not pick up Absolute Superman this week. I'm just trying to make some cuts because I'm buying too much. I'm buying too much. Oh my goodness, I totally forgot to do it. Tell you what. One thing I'm going to do before I leave. I like to pick, let's see. Throw on my glasses for this and make it all official. The Comic Tropes After Dark Book of the Week. What's it going to be? So I enjoyed everything I read this week. Dandadan, one of my favorite mangas. Feral. I told you folks, this is exceptional. One of the better issues of Ultimate X-Men, The Lucky Devils. Ultimately, my choice, excuse me, I stuttered there. My pick for Book of the Week is going to be The Lucky Devils #3 by Charles Soule and Ryan Brown. This specific issue just had that balance of humor and drama, along with some debates on philosophically of what is good, what is bad, that made it interesting to me, and I chuckled a few times in it. And it's not an easy choice because I did basically tear up in the flashback of this issue of Ultimate X-Men. So this is also fantastic, and I do recommend it. But my overall pick for what I personally enjoyed the most is going to be The Lucky Devils #3. I think that this is a great book. I do recommend it very strongly. But you can't go wrong with any of these. Like this is only 4 books. I'll just say these are 4 books that I enjoyed intensely, all of them. Every once in a while, there's a book I got where I go, oh, I'm at the point where I maybe need to drop it, or I'm shuffling them around going, I want to read this first. I was excited to read every single issue here and had a wonderful experience. So thank you for reminding me that I like to pick a book of the week. With that said, I think that should do it for this week. I'm going to call it a night, and I hope to see you next week. If you haven't seen it yet, I strongly recommend checking out my latest Comic Tropes episode, second channel, just Comic Tropes. So, yeah, a lot of good guesses there. Thank you, everybody, for being such an awesome audience. You've added a lot to the chat and the conversation. Until I see you next time, your marching orders are keep reading comics. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.